to a Greek philosopher, which is Aristotle. He believed that organisms continually move from imperfect to perfect state in a teleological development. The perfect being innate within the imperfect. The essence of something is found in the form into which it has grown. Consistent patterns of actions and ability to sense pleasure and pain correctly are the results of good habits. To achieve the Aristotelian good life, virtue necessitates the establishment of virtuous habits. In the other words of Aristotle, moral virtue is the outcome of a habit. Consistent patterns of action and the ability to sense pleasure and pain correctly are the results of good habits. In order to lead a good life, virtues and necessitates the cultivation of habits. Aristotle's view of virtue is that it is concerned with choice, lying in a mean relative to us, this being determined by a rational principle. We are not praised or blamed for our passions, as they do not involve choice, or for our faculties, because they exist within us by nature. Aristotle's view of virtue, on the other hand, is deeply entwined with his concept of habit. Our desires are correctly regulated by our habits so that we can choose virtue over sin and avoid sin in the first place. There are three elements of habit. Habits are formed in similar way to other talents, such as lyre playing, but they are not explained in detail. So the first one is origin of habits. He believed that a particular set of healthy habits must be created in youth before such habits could be actively selected by the individual. As a result, an individual's sense of virtue is shaped in part by factors outside of his control, such as the moral character of his parents. The second one is the process of creating habits. When it comes to moral decision-making, habitual action is like learning to sing in a tune or build a brick wall with the right amount of mortar. We gain new capacities for singing, constructing, and morality via the practice of these modest abilities. The third one is the action produced by habits. Humans' ultimate goal is happiness, which they achieve by performing the unique role that men are born with. The virtuous person needs to cultivate good habits. Virtue and sin can both be pleasurable and painful if our habits are well performed. Sherman wonders if the joy of moral growth can serve as a motivator for greater moral growth. Aristotle's definition of happiness is that he believed that a truly happy life necessitated the attainment of variety of circumstances, including a healthy body and a healthy mind. A new science of happiness was introduced by him in the classical sense, in terms of a new subject of study. Thomas Aquinas returns to the view that natural law is an independent reality with system of human reason approaching God's eternal law. He outlines four distinct categories of law in his Summa Theologica. What we mean by natural law. As defined by human reason, human law is the more specific determination of some subject. In the history of Western philosophy and theology, Thomas Aquinas stands alone as a towering figure. His most work, the Summa Theologica, was written over the course of 20 years. Ultimately, he comes to the conclusion that while perfect happiness is impossible on this planet, imperfect happiness most certainly is. So let's discuss Kant and his right theories. According to him, we often have little influence over whether or not our acts accomplish the goals we set for them. To be moral, Kant maintains one must first think about one's actions in a particular way. Both the self-serving shopkeeper and the genuinely kind person are acting on purely subjective and incidental grounds. Actors must think about their activities in a morally correct way. For him, the representation of a principle as a binding commitment is called a command, and the formula of the command is called an imperative. The imperative to the will say must, when the will prefer to say I want. We do not obey the imperative necessity, and the imperative appears as a constraint. Kant's categorically imperative state act is in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of another, always at the same time as the end and never merely as a means. Let's discuss about rights. Rights are those essential conditions of a social life without which no person can generally realize his best self. So, types of rights are natural rights, which the rights that are the products of social living and can only be used in a society. Number 2, moral rights. Moral rights are based on human sense of goodness and justice. So the legal rights are 3 types. Number 1, civil rights. Civil rights are those rights which provide opportunities to each person to lead a civilized life. Number 2, political rights. Political rights are really available to the people in the democratic state. This includes right to vote. And third is economic rights, which are those rights which provide economic security to the people. This enable all citizens to make proper use of their civil and political rights. Let's talk about justice. So justice and fairness are terms often used interchangeably in the context of conflict. It is an action that pays due regard to others' interests, property, and safety. The principles of justice and fairness can be thought of a rule of fair play for issues of social justice. So, number 2, distributive justice, which is concerned with the fair allocation of resources among diverse members of a community. Fair allocation typically takes into account the total amount of goods and services to be distributed. Number 2 is egalitarianism. Is a thread of thought in political philosophy. There are several different types of equality or ways in which people might be treated the same. So, number 2B is the social justice and capitalism. Today's college graduates have no exception of just how contrary the components of social justice are those of the founding order. Number 3, what is social justice? So it is a political and philosophical theory which asserts that there are other dimensions of the concept of justice. In practice, the social justice means favoring or punishing different groups of people.